Solve this, and I'll marry you." Dr. Elena Vanderbilt's voice rang through the packed MIT lecture hall, dripping with condescension as she tapped her designer pen against the whiteboard. The 3-4-year-old quantum physics prodigy stood before 200 undergraduate students, her perfectly tailored blazer and $800 heels, announcing her status as clearly as the 3 PhDs framed behind her desk. The room erupted in laughter. She had just written an impossibly complex quantum mechanics problem on the board, one involving Schrödinger's equation with nonlinear perturbations, a problem so advanced that even her graduate students struggled with it for weeks. And she had directed this mocking challenge at Marcus Sullivan, the 6-year-old janitor who had paused his floor mopping to watch her lecture from the back of the auditorium. Marcus stood frozen, his weathered hands gripping the mop handle, his faded blue maintenance uniform stark against the sea of designer backpacks and MacBooks. 30 pairs of privileged eyes turned toward him, phones already recording what they assumed would be viral content. Professor Kensington pointed directly at him, her finger slicing through the air like a weapon. "Well," she pressed, her smile sharp as a scalpel. "Anyone can look at advanced physics. Understanding it requires years of formal training at institutions like this one." The unspoken message hung in the air like poison. "You don't belong here." What Elena didn't know was that Marcus Sullivan wasn't looking at those equations for the first time. And he wasn't solving them for his pride. He was solving them for Lily, the little girl who asked him every night, "Daddy, when am I going to get a mommy like the other kids?" What happens when the person you dismiss as invisible turns out to be the one person who truly sees you? When pride meets desperation? When a single father's love for his daughter collides with a professor's unshakable belief in her own superiority? If you're enjoying this story of unexpected brilliance and want to see how this confrontation unfolds, hit that subscribe button right now. And don't forget to like this video. Also, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Are you Team Professor or Team Janitor? Let's find out what happens when Marcus picks up that marker. The confrontation had started innocuously enough. Just 15 minutes earlier, Marcus had been finishing the evening shift, cleaning the auditorium where Dr. Vanderbilt taught her advanced quantum mechanics seminar. He always saved this lecture hall for last, not because it was easier, but because he could listen to the tail end of her lectures while working. Elena was brilliant, there was no denying it. Her explanations of wave function collapse were elegant, her derivations flawless. Marcus found himself silently working through her problems in his head while pushing his cart between rows of seats. Tonight, she had been demonstrating a proof on quantum tunneling when Marcus noticed something. She'd made an error. Not a major one, just a sign error in the 4th line that would cascade into the wrong conclusion. The kind of mistake that happens when you're lecturing at 8 p.m. after a full day of research. Marcus had hesitated. He'd learned long ago that speaking up only brought trouble. The invisible should stay invisible, but the error bothered him. It wasn't about ego, it was about truth. Mathematics and physics didn't care about your job title. They only cared about correctness. "Excuse me, Dr. Vanderbilt," Marcus had said softly, his voice barely carrying from the back of the auditorium. The room fell silent. Elena turned, her expression shifting from concentration to irritation. "Yes? There's a sign error. In line 4, the gradient operator should be negative." A few students gasped. Elena's jaw tightened. She looked at the board, and for a split second, Marcus saw recognition flash in her eyes. She knew he was right, but instead of acknowledging it, she smiled coldly. "Perhaps you'd like to come down here and show us all how it's done?" She gestured theatrically to the front of the room. "Since you clearly understand quantum mechanics better than someone with 3 PhDs. The room snickered. Marcus felt his face flush, but he walked down the aisle, each step echoing in the tense silence. "Actually," Elena said, snatching it away, "if you're so brilliant, let's make this interesting. She erased her problem and began writing a new one, something far more complex, pulling from her own research. When she finished, the board was covered in dense mathematics, non-linear Schrödinger equations with time-dependent potentials, boundary conditions that would make graduate students weep. She turned to face him. The room exploded with laughter. "Come on, Dr. V," someone shouted. "That's your dissertation problem." "He's a janitor," another student laughed. "He probably doesn't even know what those symbols mean." Elena's eyes never left Marcus. This wasn't about mathematics anymore. This was about putting him in his place, about defending the natural order of the universe where people like her stood above people like him. And that's when Marcus made his decision. He looked at the problem, then he looked at Elena, and then he picked up the marker. Before we find out if Marcus can actually solve this impossible equation, let's understand the worlds these two people come from, because the distance between them isn't measured in feet across a lecture hall. It's measured in universes of privilege, opportunity, and assumptions about who deserves to be seen. The hierarchy at Massachusetts Institute of Technology was carved in granite. Dr. Elena Vanderbilt lived in a penthouse overlooking the Charles River, attended Nobel laureate dinners, and published papers that redefined quantum field theory. She dated venture capitalists and tech CEOs, and her salary could feed a small village for a year. Her office was a shrine to intellectual supremacy. Shelves lined with awards, a Harvard diploma, an Oxford certificate, publications in Nature and Science. She had earned every accolade through brilliance, ambition, and an ironclad belief that intelligence was cultivated in elite institutions, not found scrubbing floors. Her morning routine was precise. A perfectly pulled espresso from her $3,000 machine, Bloomberg News on the tablet. A black car service that picked her up at 7:30 a.m. sharp. She arrived at MIT's campus like royalty, arriving at court, her heels clicking against marble floors, with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. Elena's entire identity was built on a simple principle. Intelligence was earned through proper channels, the right schools, the right mentors, the right pedigree. People who succeeded did so because they had followed the path she had followed. And those who worked service jobs, well, they simply hadn't been smart enough or dedicated enough to climb higher. It was a worldview that had never been challenged. Until tonight, Marcus Sullivan lived in a different universe entirely. His cramped two-bedroom apartment in Dorchester was 800 square feet of peeling paint and second-hand furniture. Every morning at 4:30 a.m., he kissed his sleeping daughter's forehead, left breakfast prepared on the counter, and took 2 buses to reach MIT's campus before sunrise. His locker told a different story than his uniform suggested. Behind the cleaning supplies and time cards were advanced physics textbooks, dog-eared and highlighted, notebooks filled with tensor calculus, printed papers on quantum entanglement, stained with coffee rings from nights studying after Lily went to bed, because Marcus Sullivan had a secret. 8 years ago, he had been a doctoral candidate at Caltech, 3 months from defending his dissertation on quantum coherence in biological systems. His professors called him a once-in-a-generation mind. His future was limitless. Then Rachel, his wife, died in a car accident while 7 months pregnant. The trauma triggered premature labor. Lily survived, but was born with complications requiring years of expensive therapy and medical care. Marcus's graduate stipend evaporated in weeks. His dissertation advisor suggested he take time off. Time off became permanent when Lily's needs demanded every minute of every day. He withdrew from Caltech, moved back to Boston near Rachel's parents, and took the first job with good health insurance. Custodial staff at MIT. For 7 years, Marcus had walked these halls, invisible to the brilliant minds around him, mopping the floors where he once dreamed of teaching. But every night, when Lily asked about her future, when she wondered why she didn't have a mother like her classmates, Marcus promised her, "One day, sweetheart, One day, we'll have everything we need. He just never imagined that promise would be tested in front of 200 people by a woman who looked at him like dirt beneath her expensive shoes. Their parallel morning routines told the entire story. Elena, sipping espresso and reading about quantum computing breakthroughs. Marcus drinking instant coffee from a chipped mug, helping Lily with her math homework before the school bus arrived. Both heading to the same building, but living in completely different realities. And now, standing at that whiteboard with a marker in his hand and an impossible equation staring back at him, Marcus wasn't thinking about pride or revenge. He was thinking about Lily's face when she drew pictures of our family with 3 stick figures, always asking when the third one would be real. Marcus's hands were steady as he approached the board, but his heart was hammering against his ribs. The problem Elena had written was genuinely difficult, pulled directly from her doctoral dissertation. It involved solving a nonlinear Schrödinger equation with time-dependent potentials, the kind of problem that required not just knowledge, but deep intuition about quantum mechanics. The room had fallen into an expectant silence. Phones were raised, recording every moment. This was going to be viral gold either way. Either the janitor would embarrass himself spectacularly, or something impossible was about to happen. Elena stood to the side, arms crossed, that confident smile still playing at her lips. She knew every trap, every dead end, every subtle mathematical pitfall. There was no way someone working as a janitor could navigate it in real time. Marcus stared at the equations for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He erased a small section and began to rewrite it. "What are you doing?" Elena snapped. "The problem is clearly stated. I'm reformulating it," Marcus said quietly. "Your boundary conditions can be simplified using symmetry." A murmur went through the students. Elena's eyes narrowed. "The boundary conditions are non-trivial. That's the entire point." "They appear non-trivial," Marcus replied, his marker moving across the board with growing confidence. "But if you notice, the Hamiltonian has reflection symmetry about this axis." He drew a line. "Then, we can reduce the problem to half the domain." Dr. Aaron Chen, a visiting professor from Stanford, sat up straighter in the back row. He recognized what Marcus was doing. This wasn't just correct. It was elegant. Marcus continued writing, his years of late-night study flowing through his hands. He transformed the problem using a mathematical technique called the symmetry reduction method, something typically taught only in advanced graduate seminars. Elena's smile began to fade. She stepped closer to the board, examining his work. "Wait, you can't just— The symmetry is exact," Marcus interrupted gently, pointing to a specific term. "This coupling term appears to break it, but if you look carefully, it's symmetric under parity inversion. That means the problem decomposes." Elena finished, her voice barely a whisper. She saw it. Now. He was right. The students were leaning forward, many of them lost in the mathematics, but sensing something significant was happening. Marcus worked steadily for another 10 minutes, transforming Elena's formidable problem into something more manageable, then systematically solving it using techniques that were creative yet rigorous. When he finally set down the marker, the board was covered in elegant mathematics. Not the brute force computational approach Elena had used in her dissertation, but something more refined, more beautiful. The room was dead silent. Marcus turned to face Elena. "The solution shows that the quantum tunneling rate is approximately 10 to the -4th per second, with a weak logarithmic dependence on the barrier width. Your dissertation concluded something similar, but using a much more computationally intensive method." Elena stared at the board, then at Marcus, then back at the board. Her mind was reeling. This wasn't possible. This wasn't someone who had casually read a physics textbook. This was someone who understood quantum mechanics at a deep, fundamental level. "Who are you?" she whispered. Before Marcus could answer, Dr. Chen stood up. "May I say something?" Elena nodded, still in shock. Chen walked to the front of the room. "I've been curious about Mr. Sullivan for a few weeks now. I've seen him reading Feynman lectures during his breaks, so I did some research." He pulled out his phone and connected it to the projector. Marcus Sullivan, Caltech doctoral candidate from 2009 to 2015. GPA 3.94. Published 3 papers in Physical Review Letters. Thesis advisor was Dr. Richard Feynman, Jr. His dissertation topic was quantum coherence in biological systems, and he was 3 months from defending when he withdrew from the program. The projector showed Marcus's old Caltech ID photo. Same face, but younger, without the weight of years of struggle. The auditorium erupted in shocked whispers. He was a PhD candidate? Someone gasped. Why is he working as a janitor? Elena felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. Everything she had assumed, everything she had built this humiliation on, was crumbling. Marcus looked at Dr. Chen with something between gratitude and resignation. The secret he'd kept for 7 years was out. There was no going back now. "Why did you leave?" Elena asked, her voice small. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. A little girl with dark curls and bright eyes, holding a stuffed rabbit. "My daughter, Lily. Her mother, my wife Rachel, died in a car accident while pregnant. Lily was born premature, with complications. She needed me more than physics needed another PhD." The room had gone completely silent. Even the students who had been laughing minutes ago now looked uncomfortable. "For 7 years, I've worked nights, so I could be there for Lily during the day. I take her to therapy appointments, help with homework, make dinner, and tuck her in. Then I come here, do my job, and study when I can." He looked directly at Elena. "Every night, she asks me when she's going to get a mother like the other kids. That's why I'm standing here, Dr. Vanderbilt. Not because I want to embarrass you, but because a promise is a promise, even one made as a joke. If you're watching this and you've ever been judged by your appearance, your job, or your circumstances instead of your true capabilities, drop a comment right now. Tell us your story. And if this is reminding you that brilliance can be found anywhere, make sure you're subscribed, because what happens next is going to challenge everything you think you know about intelligence, prejudice, and second chances. Hit that like button if Marcus has earned your respect. The silence in the auditorium was deafening. Elena stood, frozen, staring at Marcus as if seeing him for the first time. The confident, dismissive professor who had mocked him minutes ago had disappeared, replaced by someone whose entire worldview was fracturing in real time. One of the students, a young woman named Priya, stood up. "Dr. Vanderbilt, you said you'd marry him if he solved it." "He solved it." The room erupted in nervous laughter and scattered applause. Elena's face went pale. I didn't mean." "A promise is a promise, Professor," another student called out, and suddenly phones were recording again, the moment going viral in real time. Marcus held up his hand. "I'm not here to hold anyone to a promise made in mockery. I just wanted to prove that intelligence isn't owned by institutions or titles. It exists everywhere, in everyone, if we're willing to look." 2. He set the marker down and began walking toward the exit. "Wait," Elena said, her voice cracking. "Please wait." Marcus paused. Elena looked around the room, at the sea of faces watching her most vulnerable moment. She could double down, dismiss this, protect her pride. Or she could do something she'd never done before. She could admit she was wrong. "I owe you an apology," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I judged you based on your uniform instead of your mind. I used my position to humiliate you because I felt threatened by someone I deemed beneath me. That says everything about my character and nothing about yours." The room was breathless. "You didn't just solve that problem," Elena continued, tears forming in her eyes. "You solved it more elegantly than I did. You saw simplicity where I saw only complexity. And you did it while raising a daughter alone, and working a job that I never even bothered to acknowledge as real work requiring a real person." She walked toward him. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for the chance to learn from you, to understand what real dedication looks like, to maybe, possibly, figure out how someone as prejudiced and proud as me could become someone better." Marcus studied her face. He saw genuine remorse there, mixed with shock and the beginning of something else. Understanding, perhaps. Humility. "We all have blind spots, Dr. Vanderbilt," he said quietly. "I had to learn the hard way that my career wasn't the most important thing in my life. Maybe you needed to learn that credentials aren't the only measure of worth." "Elena," she said. "Please call me Elena." The auditorium erupted in applause, this time genuine and sustained. Dr. Chen stepped forward again. "Mr. Sullivan, MIT would like to offer you a position, not as custodial staff, but as a visiting scholar in the physics department. We'll provide housing assistance, childcare support, and a salary commensurate with your expertise. It's time you finished what you started." Marcus felt his throat tighten. After 7 years of being invisible, suddenly he was being seen. Really seen. "I need to talk to Lily first," he managed to say. "Of course," Chen said warmly. As the crowd began to disperse, students coming up to shake Marcus's hand and apologize for their laughter, Elena remained standing by the whiteboard. She was staring at Marcus's solution, seeing it with new eyes. Not just the mathematics, but what it represented. Sacrifice. Determination. Love strong enough to set aside dreams and work invisible jobs, and still, somehow, keep the spark of genius alive. Her phone buzzed, a text from her boyfriend, Bradford. "Saw the video. This is embarrassing. We need to talk about damage control." Elena stared at the message and realized something. Bradford had never asked her about the mathematics. He'd never been interested in her work except as a status symbol. He cared about her prestigious position, not her mind. She deleted the text without responding. Marcus was gathering his cleaning supplies when Lily burst through the auditorium doors. She must have been waiting outside with Mrs. Chen, Aaron's wife. "Daddy!" Lily ran into his arms, and Marcus swept her up, holding her tight. "Did you see?" he asked. "I saw everything." Lily's eyes were shining. "You were so smart. Everyone was clapping." Elena watched this reunion from a distance, something twisting in her chest. Not jealousy, but longing. When was the last time someone had looked at her the way Lily looked at Marcus? With pure, uncomplicated pride and love? Lily noticed Elena and waved shyly. "Are you the pretty lady Daddy's supposed to marry?" Elena felt her face flush. That was. It's complicated, sweetheart," Marcus said gently. "Grown-ups always say that," Lily observed with 7-year-old wisdom. Then she looked at Elena with serious eyes. "Do you know physics?" "Daddy loves physics." "I do," Elena said, kneeling down to Lily's level. "Your daddy just taught me that I still have a lot to learn about it, though." "He's the best teacher," Lily said confidently. "He helps me with my homework every night, even when he's really tired." Elena looked up at Marcus. "Every night?" "Every night," he confirmed. "Math, science, reading, whatever she needs. And then he studies his own books," Lily added. "He has a whole pile next to his bed. They have funny symbols on them." Elena realized the magnitude of what Marcus had accomplished. He hadn't just maintained his knowledge, he'd advanced it, grown it, kept himself at the cutting edge of physics, all while raising a child alone and working full-time in a physically demanding job. "Your daddy is remarkable," Elena said softly. "I know," Lily replied matter-of-factly. Then she yawned. "Daddy, I'm sleepy. Let's get you home, sweetheart. Marcus adjusted her in his arms and looked at Elena. Good night, Dr. Vanderbilt. Elena, she corrected. And Marcus? I meant what I said. About learning from you. About being better. If you're willing to, maybe we could talk sometime. About physics. About teaching. About whatever you're willing to share. Marcus studied her for a long moment. I'd like that, he finally said. I think there's a real person under all that armor you wear. I'd like to meet her. Elena felt tears threatening again. So would I, she whispered. As Marcus carried Lily out into the cool Cambridge night, Elena remained in the empty auditorium, surrounded by equations and the shattered pieces of her old self. The video went viral within hours. Janitor Genius trended worldwide. News outlets picked it up. The story was irresistible. Arrogant professor, humbled by brilliant janitor, class warfare in academia. Hidden genius revealed. But the real story was quieter, more complex. It was about two people, both brilliant, both damaged in different ways, beginning to see each other as human beings instead of symbols of everything they resented about the world. The weeks that followed transformed both of their lives in ways neither could have predicted. Marcus accepted MIT's offer and moved into university housing, a modest but clean two-bedroom apartment that felt like a palace compared to their Dorchester walk-up. Lily enrolled in the campus elementary school, where she quickly became known as the professor's daughter, a title she wore with pride. Elena, meanwhile, faced a reckoning of her own. The viral video had made her famous for all the wrong reasons. Think pieces were written about elitism in academia, about how institutions systematically undervalue non-traditional paths to knowledge. Some defended her, saying everyone makes mistakes. But many more criticized the broader culture that had produced someone like her. Her boyfriend, Bradford, broke up with her publicly via a Medium post titled, "When Your Partner's Brand Becomes Toxic." Elena read it once, felt a brief flicker of anger, and then realized she felt relieved. She didn't want to be with someone who saw her as a brand. Dr. Chen became an unlikely mentor to both Marcus and Elena, separately coaching them through their respective transitions. For Marcus, it was about regaining confidence in academic settings, remembering how to lecture and engage with students. For Elena, it was about unlearning the hierarchies she'd internalized, about seeing maintenance workers and administrative staff as fully human. Their first real conversation happened 3 weeks after the incident, in the physics building's cafe at 7 a.m. Elena arrived early, the dawdle-blawed, nervous in a way she hadn't been since her doctoral defense. Marcus showed up right on time, 2 coffees in hand. "I wasn't sure how you took yours," he said, "so I brought sugar and cream on the side." "Black is perfect," Elena said, accepting the cup. "Thank you." They sat in awkward silence for a moment. "I've been thinking about your solution to my dissertation problem," Elena finally said. "The symmetry reduction method. I should have seen it. My advisor should have seen it. But we were so focused on brute force computation that we missed the elegant path." "It's easy to miss what you're not looking for," Marcus said. "I had the advantage of coming to it fresh, without preconceptions about how it should be solved." "Is that a polite way of saying my thinking was rigid?" Marcus smiled slightly. "Your thinking was thorough and correct. It just wasn't the only way." Elena wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Sure. Do you resent me for having the career you should have had?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I used to," he admitted. "In the early years, when I was exhausted and frustrated and mourning everything I'd lost, I'd see professors walking by without seeing me, and I'd think, I'm smarter than you. It was bitter and ugly, and I'm not proud of it. And now? Now I realize everyone's carrying something. You built walls to protect yourself from feeling inadequate in a world that probably told you that as an immigrant's daughter, you didn't belong. I lost everything and had to rebuild in the shadows. Neither of those experiences is better or worse. They're just different kinds of hard. Elena felt something crack open in her chest. How are you so wise? Single parenting, Marcus said wryly. You learn that most conflict comes from fear and hurt, not actual malice. Lily taught me that. Tell me about her, Elena said. Really, tell me. So? Marcus did. He told her about Lily's love of drawing, her fascination with butterflies, the way she organized her stuffed animals by size every night before bed. He told her about the speech delays they'd worked through, the physical therapy, the ongoing challenges and triumphs. He talked about Rachel, too. The first time he'd spoken her name to someone outside family in years. Elena listened, really listened, and realized she was seeing a kind of love she'd never experienced. Unconditional, sacrificial, fierce. She wants a mother, Marcus said quietly. She's been asking more frequently. I don't know how to explain to a 7-year-old that adult relationships are complicated, that you can't just assign someone that role. What would you want in a partner? Elena asked, surprising herself with the question. If you could design the perfect situation for Lily? Marcus thought about it. Someone patient, someone who sees her as a whole person, not just a cute kid. Someone intellectually curious, because Lily asks 1,000,000 questions a day, and I want her to grow up knowing that curiosity is valued. He paused. Someone who understands that she'll always be my first priority, and is okay with that. Elena felt her heart beating faster. That sounds like a good list. Their eyes met across the table, and something unspoken passed between them. Not love, not yet, but possibility. The tentative beginning of understanding. If you're still watching, drop a comment and tell us what you think. Can these two people actually build something real from such a complicated beginning? And where are you watching from? We love hearing from our global community. Don't forget to subscribe, because this story is about to get even more interesting. The question isn't just whether Elena can become the person Lily needs, it's whether she can become the person she needs to be. Over the next 2 months, Elena and Marcus fell into an unexpected rhythm. They began co-teaching an undergraduate seminar on quantum mechanics, with Marcus bringing intuitive explanations and Elena providing rigorous mathematical frameworks. The students loved it, their course evaluations calling it the best physics class at MIT. Elena started joining Marcus and Lily for occasional weekend outings. First, it was the Museum of Science, where Lily dragged them both to the butterfly garden and asked approximately 10,000 questions. Then the aquarium, where Elena found herself genuinely enjoying the wonder in Lily's eyes as they watched jellyfish pulse through darkened tanks. Lily, for her part, was cautiously warming to Elena. She noticed that Elena listened when she talked, didn't talk down to her, and once spent an entire afternoon helping her build a volcano for her science project. Is Elena your girlfriend? Lily asked Marcus one night after Elena had left from dinner. We're friends, Marcus said carefully. Good friends, but you smile different when she's here, Lily observed. Like you're happy, but also scared. Marcus laughed despite himself. When did you get so perceptive? I'm 7, Daddy. I notice things. The shift happened on a rainy Tuesday evening. Elena had stopped by to drop off some research papers and found Marcus at the kitchen table, head in his hands, surrounded by medical bills. What's wrong? She asked. Marcus looked up, exhausted. Lily needs another round of therapy. The insurance approved it, but the co-pays are significant. I thought the MIT salary would make this easier, but Cambridge rent is brutal, and I'm trying to save for her college fund. And Elena sat down across from him. How much? Elena? No, I'm not asking you for. RNSR. How much, Marcus? 12,000. Over 6 months. Elena pulled out her phone and made a transfer. Done. Marcus stared at her in shock. I can't accept this. Yes, you can. And you will. Elena's voice was firm. You sacrificed your career for Lily. Let me sacrifice a fraction of my probably too large salary to help her. Please. Marcus felt his eyes burning. Why are you doing this? Because Lily deserves everything, Elena said simply. And because you both have given me something I didn't even know I was missing. A reason to be better than I was. Let me do this. That night, after Lily was asleep, Marcus and Elena sat on the small apartment balcony, watching rain fall over Cambridge. I need to tell you something, Elena said quietly. I'm falling for you. For both of you. And it terrifies me because I've never been good at the vulnerable parts of being human. I can solve quantum equations, but I don't know how to be the person Lily would need. Marcus reached over and took her hand. None of us know what we're doing. We just try, fail, adjust, and try again. That's all parenting is. That's all relationships are. What if I fail her? What if I can't be what she needs? Then you'll try again, Marcus said. That's all I've been doing for 7 years. Trying, failing, trying again. And Lily's turned out pretty amazing despite my fumbling. Elena laughed through tears. The question isn't whether you'll be perfect, Marcus continued. It's whether you're willing to show up, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Elena turned to face him. I want to show up. For both of you. If you'll let me. Marcus leaned forward and kissed her, soft and tentative and full of possibility. When they pulled apart, Lily's voice came from the doorway. I knew it. She was standing there in her pajamas, grinning. I knew you were going to be my new mom. Lily. Marcus started. You should be asleep. Can I call you Mom? Lily asked Elena directly. Or is that too fast? Daddy says I move too fast sometimes. Elena felt her heart crack open completely. She knelt down to Lily's level. How about we start with Elena and see where things go? Is that okay? Lily thought about it seriously. Okay, but I'm going to draw pictures of our family now. Just so you know. I'd like that very much, Elena said. After Marcus tucked Lily back into bed, he returned to find Elena standing by the kitchen table, looking at the medical bills she'd just paid off. Thank you, he said. For all of it. Thank you for solving an equation I didn't even know I needed to solve, Elena replied. The equation of how to be human. 3 months later, on a Saturday morning in the Boston Public Garden, Marcus set up a picnic while Lily chased ducks, and Elena read a physics paper, making notes in the margins. Elena? Lily called out. Can we get ice cream after lunch? Ask your dad, Elena replied automatically, then caught herself. Actually, yes, but only if you eat your sandwich first. Lily beamed and ran back to the ducks. Marcus looked at Elena with soft eyes. You're getting good at this. I have a good teacher, Elena said, leaning her head on his shoulder. A tourist couple walked by and did a double take. Wait, are you that professor from the viral video? The woman asked. Elena tensed, waiting for judgment. That was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, the woman continued. My husband is a mechanic, but he taught himself engineering. Your video reminded people like us that intelligence isn't about fancy degrees. Thank you. After they walked away, Elena felt Marcus squeeze her hand. Still think that night was the worst thing that ever happened to you? Elena looked at Lily, playing in the grass without a care in the world. The man who had shown her what real strength looked like. Then, at herself, someone she barely recognized anymore. Someone softer and more human than the person who had stood in that lecture hall months ago. It was the best thing, she said quietly. The very best thing. 6 months after that viral night, Marcus and Elena stood in Cambridge City Hall, with Lily between them, in a white dress she'd picked out herself. Dr. Chen officiated as an ordained minister, a fact that surprised everyone. Marriage, Chen said, is like quantum entanglement. Two separate particles becoming fundamentally connected so that the state of one instantly affects the state of the other, regardless of distance. Lily giggled. That's silly, Dr. Chen. Maybe, Chen said with a smile. But it's also true. 2020-2020, 2020-2012. Elena's vows were simple. Marcus, you showed me that the most elegant solutions often come from unexpected places. Lily, you showed me that love is patient and fearless, and worth every risk. I promise to keep learning from both of you, every single day. Marcus's vows were equally direct. Elena, you walked toward your mistakes instead of away from them. You chose growth over pride. I promise to walk beside you through all the equations we have yet to solve. When they kissed, Lily cheered loudly enough that everyone in City Hall turned to look. At the small reception afterward in the physics department common room, students gave toasts that ranged from heartfelt to hilariously awkward. Dr. Chen's was the most meaningful. I've watched two brilliant people become more than the sum of their parts, he said. And I've been reminded that the most important equations we solve aren't written on whiteboards. They're written in how we treat each other, how we grow, how we choose love over fear. Late that night, after Lily was asleep in her room in their new, larger apartment, Marcus and Elena stood on the balcony watching the lights of Cambridge. Do you ever miss the old version of yourself? Marcus asked. The one before that night? Elena thought about it. Sometimes I miss the certainty, the clear sense of who I was and where I fit. But that person was lonely in ways she didn't even recognize. This version, the messier, more confused version, she's happier. Good, Marcus said, pulling her close. Because this version is my favorite. Mine too, Elena admitted. Inside, Lily had woken up and padded quietly to their bedroom door, checking to make sure they were still there. Seeing them on the balcony, safe and together, she smiled and went back to bed. A year later, Elena published a paper on quantum coherence in biological systems. The dedication read, "To Marcus, who never stopped seeing the patterns," and "To Lily, who taught me to see with my heart." Marcus defended his PhD dissertation at MIT 8 years later than planned, with Elena and Lily in the front row. His opening statement was simple. This work is dedicated to everyone who takes the long path, the hard path, the path that looks nothing like they planned. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be. And Lily, now 8 years old, started a program at her school called Hidden Genius, where students interviewed custodians, cafeteria workers, and security guards about their knowledge, skills, and dreams. The project went viral, spawning similar programs across the country. Because sometimes, the most profound changes don't come from discovering new things. They come from finally seeing what was always there. Before we close this story, I want to ask you something. How many brilliant people did you walk past today without really seeing them? The person who served your coffee, who cleaned your office, who checked you out at the grocery store? What if one of them is carrying genius that the world has overlooked? If this story moved you, if it changed how you see the people around you, do 3 things right now. First, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Second, like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear that their circumstances don't define their worth. And third, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and sharing a time when someone surprised you by being more than you assumed they were. We tell these stories because the world needs reminding that extraordinary things often hide in the most ordinary places. That the people we dismiss might be the ones we most need to know. That love, Real love requires us to see beyond surfaces and titles and assumptions to the truth underneath. Marcus and Elena's story started with humiliation and mockery, but it became something neither of them expected. A reminder that we're all solving equations every day. Not just mathematical ones, but human ones. How to be better, how to love well, how to see clearly. And sometimes, just sometimes, the person who solves the hardest equation in your life is the one you never expected, the one you almost didn't see. Thank you for watching this story from Stories Untold. If you enjoyed this journey, check out our playlist of similar stories about hidden brilliance, unexpected love, and the moments that change everything. We'll see you in the next one, where we'll explore another tale of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Because that's what people do, when we finally take the time to truly see them. 5 years after that viral night, Marcus stood at the front of MIT's largest auditorium, not with a mop, but with a laser pointer. He was delivering the keynote address for the annual undergraduate physics symposium, and the room was packed with over 1,000 students, faculty, and guests from universities across the country. When I first walked into this building, Marcus began, his voice steady and warm, I entered through the service entrance. I wore a uniform that made me invisible. I pushed a cart filled with cleaning supplies, and I told myself that invisibility was safety, that if no one saw me, no one could judge the gap between who I used to be and who I'd become. He clicked to the next slide, showing a photo of himself in his maintenance uniform, taken by a student journalist 5 years ago. What I didn't understand then was that invisibility isn't safety, it's erasure. And when we erase ourselves to make others comfortable, we rob the world of our gifts. We rob ourselves of our humanity. In the front row, Elena sat with 12-year-old Lily between her and Dr. Chen. Lily had grown tall and confident, her dark curls now reaching past her shoulders. She wore a t-shirt that said, "My dad solved the impossible in equations instead of words," a gift from the physics department students. Elena reached over and squeezed Lily's hand. Their daughter, because that's what Lily had become in every way that mattered, squeezed back without taking her eyes off Marcus. The night that changed my life, Marcus continued, wasn't actually about solving an equation. It was about being seen. Dr. Elena Vanderbilt Sullivan, my wife. He gestured to Elena, who smiled despite the cameras turning toward her, challenged me in a moment of defensive pride. She didn't expect me to solve her problem. She expected me to fail publicly, to prove a worldview she'd built her entire identity around. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. But here's what that night taught both of us. Intelligence isn't a trophy you earn by walking through the right doors and collecting the right credentials. Intelligence is a living thing, growing in unexpected soil, nourished by curiosity and desperation and love. It flourishes in Ivy League laboratories, yes, but it also flourishes in night shifts and kitchen tables and quiet moments when everyone else is asleep. Marcus clicked to another slide, this one showing a collage of photos. Custodians, cafeteria workers, security guards, all holding signs with their hidden talents and abandoned dreams. After that viral video, something unexpected happened. People started reaching out to me from all over the world. A security guard in Singapore, who had a master's in literature but couldn't find teaching work. A cafeteria worker in Detroit who was a self-taught programmer. A housekeeper in London who spoke 7 languages. Hundreds, then thousands of stories about brilliant people doing invisible work because circumstances, not capability, had placed them there. He paused, letting the weight of that sink in. So my wife and I, along with Dr. Chen and a team of educators and activists, created something. We call it the Hidden Genius Fellowship. The slide changed to show a logo, a simple image of a door opening, light streaming through. The fellowship provides full scholarships, living expenses, childcare, and mental health support for adults who have academic brilliance but non-traditional circumstances. People who left school to care for family members. People who never had access to higher education. People who have been working invisible jobs while carrying extraordinary minds. The audience began to applaud, but Marcus held up a hand. In 5 years, we've supported 847 fellows across 23 countries. They're now doctors, engineers, teachers, researchers, artists, and yes, professors. But more importantly, they're visible. They're seen, and they're changing the world in ways that would never have happened if we'd kept walking past them without looking. Lily beamed with pride. She'd helped her parents with the fellowship application reviews, reading essays from candidates, and voting on who should be accepted. Elena had insisted that Lily be part of the process, teaching her early that privilege came with responsibility. "My daughter Lily," Marcus continued, and Lily waved as the camera found her, started a program at her middle school called See Me. Every student is paired with a staff member, not to be mentored in the traditional sense, but to interview them, to learn their stories, to see them as full human beings with complex lives and hidden depths. Marcus's voice grew thicker with emotion. Last month, Lily interviewed Mr. Raymond Johnson, who's been cleaning her school for 30 years. She discovered he's a jazz pianist who once played with Miles Davis. The school is now hosting his first concert in 15 years. Because someone finally asked. Because someone finally looked. The audience erupted in sustained applause. Elena felt tears streaming down her face, and she didn't bother wiping them away. "But I don't want to stand here and pretend that visibility alone solves systemic problems," Marcus said, his tone shifting to something more serious. "The Hidden Genius Fellowship helps hundreds. But there are millions of brilliant people trapped in circumstances that waste their potential. Millions of people who can't afford to chase their dreams because they're too busy surviving." He clicked to a new slide, showing statistics about poverty, educational access, and economic mobility. Real change requires more than heartwarming stories. It requires transforming systems that value pedigree over capability. It requires universities actively recruiting from community colleges, not just elite prep schools. It requires companies hiring based on demonstrated skill, not just degrees. It requires all of us examining our own biases about who looks smart, who sounds educated, who deserves opportunities. Marcus looked directly at the students in the audience. "Many of you will graduate from MIT and step into positions of power. You'll make hiring decisions. You'll influence policy. You'll shape institutions. And when you do, I'm asking you to remember this. The person who cleans your office might be smarter than you. The person who serves your food might have insights you desperately need. The person you walk past without seeing might be the genius who solves the problem you've been struggling with for years." He paused, then smiled. "Or they might become your family, if you're as lucky as I am." The audience laughed and applauded again. "5 years ago, I was invisible. Today, I'm a professor, a researcher, and yes, a minor internet celebrity, which my daughter finds deeply embarrassing." "Only sometimes," Lily called out, making everyone laugh. "But the most important thing I've become," Marcus said softly, "is visible to myself. I no longer erase parts of my story to make other people comfortable. I'm a single father who became a janitor, who returned to academia, who married the woman who once mocked me, who co-created a movement for hidden brilliance. All of those things are true simultaneously. The complicated, messy, non-linear path is my path, and it's valid." Elena was openly crying now, and Dr. Chen handed her a tissue while dabbing at his own eyes. "So here's my challenge to everyone in this room," Marcus concluded. "For the next week, really see the people around you. Not just acknowledge them, but see them. Ask the person who makes your coffee what they're passionate about. Ask the person who cleans your dorm what they dream about. Ask the security guard what they're reading. Then, actually listen to the answers. He clicked to the final slide, which simply read, "Brilliance is everywhere. Are you looking? Thank you for seeing me," Marcus said. "And thank you for choosing to see others. Together, we can build a world where genius isn't wasted, where talent isn't invisible, and where everyone has the chance to solve the equations they were born to solve." The standing ovation lasted nearly 5 minutes. Students rushed the stage afterward, some asking for advice, others sharing their own stories of hidden brilliance in their families. Marcus listened to each one, giving them the gift of being truly seen. That evening, the Sullivan Vanderbilt family gathered in their home, a comfortable house near campus with a large backyard where Lily practiced soccer and Marcus maintained a small garden. Elena cooked pasta while Marcus helped Lily with her algebra homework, a reversal of their old dynamic that made them both smile. "Mom," Lily said, using the name that had gradually replaced Elena over the years, "Jessica at school says her dad works at a car wash, but he used to be a surgeon in Syria. Can we nominate him for the fellowship?" Elena set down the spoon and came to the table. "Of course we can. Tell Jessica to have her father email us his story." "This is exactly what I was talking about today," Marcus said, ruffling Lily's hair. "You're seeing people, sweetheart. Really seeing them." After dinner, once Lily was doing homework in her room, Marcus and Elena sat on their back porch with glasses of wine, watching fireflies blink in the growing darkness. "Do you ever think about that night?" Elena asked. "The night I said I'd marry you if you solved the equation?" "Sometimes," Marcus admitted. "Usually when I'm about to do something that scares me. It reminds me that the impossible is just the thing we haven't figured out yet." "I think about it all the time," Elena confessed. "Not because I'm ashamed anymore, though I was for a long time, but because it was the night I stopped pretending to be perfect and started learning to be real." Marcus took her hand. "You know what's funny? I went into that auditorium thinking I needed to solve your equation to prove I was worthy of respect, but the real equation I needed to solve was much harder." "What equation was that?" "How to believe I was worthy of love. How to let someone see all of me, the brilliant parts, and the broken parts, and the exhausted parts, and trust that they'd stay." Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. "I'm staying. Always." From inside the house, they heard Lily on a video call with her friend Jessica, already making plans to help Jessica's father with his fellowship application. Her voice was animated, confident, full of the certainty that she could make a difference. "We did good," Elena whispered. "We did better than good," Marcus replied. "We created a world where brilliance doesn't have to hide." Later that night, Marcus checked on Lily before bed. She was already under the covers, but her bedside lamp was still on, illuminating a notebook filled with her careful handwriting. "What are you working on, sweetheart?" "An essay for English class," Lily said. "We have to write about someone who inspires us." "Well, who did you choose?" "Both of you," Lily said, simply. "But mostly you, Dad, because you never gave up, even when everyone treated you like you were invisible. You kept being brilliant, even when no one was watching. That's the hardest kind of courage." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "You inspire me too, you know. Every single day." "I know," Lily said with a sleepy smile. "That's why we're such a good team." As Marcus turned off her light and closed her door, he stood in the hallway for a moment, overwhelmed by gratitude. 5 years ago, he'd been a man cleaning floors, dreaming of giving his daughter a mother, wondering if he'd ever finish what he started. Now he was a man who had found his way back to himself, who had helped hundreds of others find their way, who had built a family from the wreckage of loss and the alchemy of unexpected love. He walked back to the porch where Elena was still sitting, her laptop open, reviewing fellowship applications. "Come here," she said, patting the seat beside her. "Look at this one." a woman from Pakistan who taught herself astrophysics through YouTube videos. She's working as a housekeeper, but she's discovered a potential error in dark matter calculations. Marcus leaned over to read the application, his physicist's brain immediately engaged. "This is extraordinary. We need to accept her immediately." "Already done," Elena said with a grin. "I sent the acceptance letter 10 minutes ago." They worked together late into the night. Two brilliant minds, no longer working in isolation, but in partnership, finding the hidden geniuses and giving them the visibility they deserved. Because that's what love does when it's built on seeing each other truly. It doesn't just change two lives. It ripples outward, touching hundreds, then thousands, then millions, and it all started with an impossible equation. A mocking challenge, and a janitor who dared to pick up the marker and write. The most elegant solutions, Marcus had learned, come not from avoiding complexity, but from embracing it. From taking the messy, non-linear, complicated path and finding the beauty hidden within it. His life wasn't a straight line from brilliant student to successful professor. It was a curve, a spiral, a path that dipped into darkness before rising toward light. And that path had led him exactly where he needed to be, with a daughter who saw the world clearly, with a wife who had learned to see beyond her own pride, with a mission that transformed how the world saw brilliance. As Marcus and Elena finally headed to bed, arms around each other, they passed Lily's door and heard her voice, talking in her sleep. "Solve this, and I'll marry you," she mumbled, then giggled. "Daddy solved it." "He solved everything," Marcus smiled in the darkness. Not everything, he thought, but enough, more than enough. And tomorrow, they'd wake up and solve a few more equations. The human kind, the kind that changed lives, because that's what happens when genius stops hiding and starts shining. The whole world gets a little brighter.